My name is Ken. I am 49 years old. I'm not married. I'm looking for a wife. Probably too late to have children, unfortunately, but that's fine. I'm lucky to be alive. Every day's a bonus. I retired from the Navy in 2016, took some time off, and found a new job at the Department of Justice, and been there for a year and a half. Well, back up a little bit. When I first got to the ER, I don't recall what time it was, but after they took care of all the kids that had broken arms and sick and crying babies and whatnot, they got to me and they took a CAT scan. They said, "Sir, you want to see your CAT scan?" And I said, "Sure." It had a big white blotch on it. And I thought, well, I'm not a doctor, but that doesn't look cool. And they said, the attending doctor in the ER, or the ER doctor for the night, said, "We're going to call I called the neurosurgeon. He said, just don't leave. Don't let him leave. I'll be there at 5 o'clock or something like that. Don't let him leave because, God forbid, he falls into a coma. It's going to be a lot harder to operate on him." I'm okay. So my mom and I never left the Balboa. They put me in the ward, and a few days later, my mom and dad arrived. My friends started pouring in. And so, being that it was a rare tumor, the first person we met was rare for an adult, is my understanding. We met with the surgeon, my parents and I, and he said, "You can go and get a second opinion, but everybody's going to tell you that has to come out." So they did. He did a full resection of the tumor, medulloblastoma in the back of my head, in the cerebellum. And afterwards, when I was in the ICU for 10 or 12 days, I could have asked for better nurses. You know, when I was initially diagnosed, there was no one of my age, nor of any age, that had medulloblastoma there. It's so rare. I was put in the kid ward. And one night I was spending the night there, and I had an IV that was a little loose, and all the nurses, of course, are used to dealing with children. And the nurses came over and they said, "Oh, are you okay?" And because they were talking like I was a child, which is understandable. That's what they were doing. That's why they were so great. And they said, "Do you think it would help if I held your hand?" And I said, "Yes, I think it would." And it did. Radiation is not pleasant at all. My first time I drove myself, and first time I drove myself, and then naturally I was throwing up until I said to the doctors, there was a spare room, I said, you mind if I stay here and lay down for a minute? I can't drive home right now. And they said, sure. But the next time I went, friends would bring me, or my Navy friends would bring me. Many years after the initial surgery, the radiation, the chemotherapy. So I asked for the hospital here in DC, the Navy hospital. As you know, I thought, boy, a Balboa surgery did treat me well. Maybe I can do a little bit by working at the Navy hospital. I'm a lawyer. And so they gave me that assignment. So my oncologist over there was Dr. Brett Thaler, and he is a part of this, and so he offered this opportunity to me to come to the study, which I gladly accepted. Well, I don't drive anymore, and that was a delayed effect because the max dose of radiation to my head, it damaged the optic nerve, and I'm completely fine with this. If not driving is a small price to pay to be alive, but I don't drive anymore because my periphery is not as good. My eyes don't adjust to sun and darkness quickly. I was less concerned about me, more concerned with, God forbid, I hit someone. And my short-term memory is not where I want it to be. My balance is better than it's been in a long time, but it could improve too. It was a delayed effect, but one of them was my voice. And I think it's slurred a little bit, and it's not completely articulate. I can't say, I'll never be able to say enough for all the people who looked after me, all the Navy, my friends, then my parents came out, eventually my brothers and sisters came out on a different occasion. Without the doctors, I definitely would have died. Without all the support, I likely would have died, but probably definitely. If you don't go into it strong, if you don't go into it with a positive attitude, then I think that it'll be trouble. I mean, it could be trouble either way. I'm very, very, very fortunate to be alive. And I know that every single day, I'm blessed to be here, even today.
Learn more at cancer.gov/NCI-Connect. Contact us, NCI Connect, at mail.nih.gov, 240-760-6530.
U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, National Institutes of Health, National Cancer Institute, cancer.gov, 1-800-4CANCER. Produced December 2020.